Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking a really fascinating piece of source material. It tackles a nearly universal and, honestly, kind of uncomfortable parenting habit. It's something almost everyone has experienced, on one side or the other, that instinct to point out another kid's success to motivate your own. We're going to look at exactly why we do it, the hidden damage it can cause, and most importantly, how we can shift our approach to actually inspire genuine, lasting growth.
Okay, let's dive into this. The source poses this exact, direct question right out of the gate. Should parents compare their children with other children? It's a really heavy question. And to be totally fair, the text acknowledges that most parents who do this have incredibly good intentions. They want their kids to succeed. They see another child excelling and think, hey, if my child sees what their friend is doing, maybe it'll spark some healthy competition. Maybe they'll just work a little bit harder. It really does come from a place of love. But, as we'll see, the actual impact often tells a completely different story.
I mean, just listen to this phrase. Your friend got 90%, why did you get 65%? Ouch, right? If you've ever had something like this said to you, you can literally feel the sting immediately. It's harsh, it's super direct, and according to our source material, it's an incredibly common phrasing used in homes everywhere. And what it does is it instantly sets up a dynamic where a child's self-worth feels totally tied to someone else's scoreboard. And that brings us right to the core thesis of our explainer today. The source argues that there is a razor-thin line here. Sure, comparison might give a child a temporary motivational push. They might hit the books harder for the next test just to avoid another lecture. But that short-term win, it comes with a massive risk of deep, hidden, long-term damage. It can absolutely breed resentment and leave a kid feeling like they are simply never going to be good enough no matter what they do.
So let's move into our first major concept, Section 1, the comparison trap, and the issue of unequal starting points. And this brilliantly illustrates the core problem. Think about student A. They've got a quiet room, blazing fast internet, and parents with the free time to actually sit down and help with homework. Now, contrast that with student B. Maybe they have to take care of younger siblings, or they lack those same resources, or perhaps they just have a completely different learning style. When a parent says to student B, why can't you just be like student A, they are only looking at the final outcome. They are completely ignoring the vastly unequal starting lines and circumstances. Which brings us to a seriously powerful takeaway from the text. Different does not mean inferior. And the source makes such a great point here, this applies even to siblings raised under the exact same roof. One kid might be an absolute math whiz, while the other naturally gravitates toward creative writing. One learns by reading, the other needs, hands-on examples. Their brains are just wired differently, and trying to measure one against the other is honestly a recipe for disaster. Which leads us perfectly into Section 2, the hidden costs, the damage that happens right beneath the surface. The source maps out some specific, really concerning side effects. When a child constantly hears that someone else is better, their internal dialogue literally shifts. They stop thinking, okay, I need to improve, and they start believing, I'm just not good enough. This creates a totally crippling fear of making mistakes. They start avoiding difficult subjects entirely, basically because they'd rather not try at all than try, fail, and get compared again. It breeds deep resentment between siblings. Suddenly a brother isn't family, he's the actual reason mom and dad are disappointed. And ultimately, it shifts their entire focus toward just winning rather than, actually learning anything.
And when kids adopt the mindset that grades are the literal only measure of success, the true purpose of education goes completely out the window. The text points out that students who are conditioned this way will just memorize facts to pass the test and then instantly forget them. They become terrified of raising their hand to ask a question because, well, it might make them look less smart. In the absolute worst-case scenarios, it even leads to cheating. The pressure to just beat everybody else completely overshadows critical thinking, problem-solving, and collaboration.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the highly constructive solution the source offers to combat all of this. Welcome to Section 3, a healthier approach.
There's a massive distinction here between harmful personal comparison and what the text calls healthy observation. Healthy observation doesn't attack the child's identity. It definitely doesn't say, why aren't you as smart as David? Instead, it looks at David's success as a source of inspiration for specific, learnable behaviors. It sounds a bit more like, hey, David has a really consistent study routine every day after school. Let's see if we can learn something from his approach. Do you see the difference there? It's all about the strategy, not their self-worth.
But if you really want to measure progress, the text suggests changing the benchmark entirely. Just stop comparing your kid to the kid down the street and start comparing them to their own past self. Just look at these numbers. If a math score jumps from 45% to 60%, that is a massive victory.
If their ability to sit and focus goes from 20 minutes to a full hour, that is incredible progress. When a child competes against who they were yesterday, they actually develop a true growth mindset.
To really lock in that growth mindset, the source advises a complete shift in how we give praise. We need to praise the process. Stop telling kids, "You're so smart," or "You're just a natural." Start praising the specific actions that actually led to the good grade. Praise their effort, the study strategy they used, their persistence when a problem got really tough, and their genuine willingness to learn. This teaches them that success isn't some magical, innate trait they were born with. It's a direct result of their own hard work.
So how do we actually put this into practice? Section 4. What to say instead. Let's look at a practical framework.
Instead of using that absolutely crushing statement, "Why can't you be like your friend?" check out the positive approach. What do you think your friend is doing that you could learn from? Again, we are completely shifting the spotlight away from personal inadequacy and pointing it directly at actionable strategy.
And here's the sibling dynamic we talked about. Saying your brother is smarter than you is basically a guaranteed way to spark lifelong tension and rivalry in your house. But by simply asking, which areas do you think you need to improve, you completely eliminate the sibling from the equation. Boom, gone. You bring the entire focus right back to the child's own personal development journey. So, the crucial point is that we don't have to just excuse poor performance. The source makes it very clear that parents can, and should, still address bad grades. But instead of saying, "You always fail," which totally destroys confidence, you try, "Well, this result wasn't what we expected. Let's find out what went wrong." You become a team solving a puzzle together, rather than a judge handing down a sentence. You can correct them without crushing them. Finally, the source shifts its focus directly to the students watching. Section 5, a message for students on navigating all this pressure. The text delivers this fantastic, empowering reminder. You don't need to become someone else. You need to become the best version of yourself. Seriously, if you are a student listening right now, remember that your educational journey is entirely your own. It literally doesn't matter if your friend grasps a concept in 5 minutes and it takes you 5 days. What matters is that you keep moving forward on your own path. To sum up the actionable advice for both parents and students to really foster that intrinsic motivation, the source lays out 4 simple, clear steps. First, identify specific areas to improve. Second, set realistic, actually achievable goals. Third, track your personal progress over time, remember, comparing against your past self. And fourth, celebrate that improvement, no matter how small it might seem. And underneath all of this, the absolute foundational rule is that a child must know that love and support are never, ever tied to a letter grade.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with one final provocative question straight from the text. Instead of asking a kid why they aren't like someone else, what if we all just started asking, "How can I help you become better than you were yesterday?" Just imagine how much confidence, growth, and joy we could unlock with just that one simple shift in perspective. Think about that the very next time you look at a report card. Thanks so much for joining me, and keep learning.